Most people think mornings are about time, about waking up early, about alarms and schedules and routines copied from someone else's success story. But mornings have never been about the clock. They've always been about intention, about what you choose to care about before the world starts demanding your attention. Because the moment you wake up, a decision is already waiting for you. Not a big one, not a dramatic one, a quiet one. Will you lead your day, or will you let your day lead you? That decision shapes everything that follows. When you start the morning without intention, you hand over control without realizing it. The phone lights up, messages arrive, notifications stack up, other people's priorities rush in before you've had a chance to remember your own. And slowly, almost invisibly, your day becomes reactive instead of deliberate. But intention changes that. Intention is not about having a perfect plan. It's about knowing why you're doing what you're doing. It's about grounding yourself in something deeper than urgency. When you design your morning with intention, you are reminding yourself of who you are before the noise begins. And that reminder matters more than motivation ever will. Because motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. It depends on how you feel. Intention doesn't care how you feel. It exists whether you're excited or tired, confident or uncertain. Intention is rooted in belief, and beliefs are far more powerful than moods. This is why two people can wake up at the same time, have the same resources, and live completely different lives. One reacts, the other decides. Designing a morning doesn't mean controlling every minute. It means choosing a direction. Even a few minutes of clarity can change the tone of an entire day. A moment to reflect, a moment to think, a moment to ask what actually matters today. That question is uncomfortable for many people because answering it means taking responsibility. It means acknowledging that some things matter more than others. And that means some distractions must be left behind. But responsibility is the price of meaning. When you avoid intention in the morning, you don't avoid effort. You simply postpone it. And postponed effort always comes back as stress later in the day. What you don't face early, you carry with you all day long. This is why mornings feel heavy for so many people, not because they're tired, but because they're unclear. They wake up already overwhelmed because they haven't decided what deserves their energy. Everything feels equally urgent when nothing has been intentionally prioritized. Intention creates hierarchy. It brings order to chaos. And once order exists, discipline becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. Because you're no longer forcing yourself to act without understanding why. You're aligning your actions with something you believe in. That alignment creates momentum. Momentum doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. And consistency begins with repeatable mornings. Not perfect mornings, repeatable ones. The mistake many people make is trying to redesign their entire life overnight. They aim for dramatic change instead of sustainable structure. They chase extreme routines instead of meaningful ones. And when they fail to maintain them, they assume the problem is their willpower. It's not. The problem is the absence of intention. When your morning is designed around who you're trying to become, even small actions feel significant. A few focused minutes feel purposeful. A simple habit feels powerful because it's connected to a belief, not just a task. That's how identity is shaped, not by what you do once in a while, but by what you repeatedly do when no one is watching, especially in the morning, because mornings are honest. There's no audience, no applause, no external pressure yet, just you and your choices, and those choices quietly reinforce the story you tell yourself about who you are. If you begin the day in chaos, your mind learns chaos. If you begin the day with intention, your mind learns leadership, and leadership always starts internally. People often ask how to feel more in control of their lives. The answer is rarely found in dramatic changes. It's found in the first decision of the day, the decision to pause before reacting, to choose before responding, to design before consuming. That pause is powerful. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you reclaim agency. You stop living on autopilot. You stop being pulled in every direction. You start acting instead of reacting. This doesn't mean every day will go as planned. It won't. Life will interrupt. Problems will arise. Unexpected challenges will appear. But intention doesn't eliminate difficulty. It equips you to handle it. When you know why you're doing something, obstacles feel different. They become part of the process, not signs to quit. The morning intention becomes an anchor, something you return to when the day tries to pull you off course, and over time, something subtle but profound happens. Your confidence grows. Not the loud kind, not the kind that seeks validation, the quiet kind, the kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't just survive the day, you participated in it. That confidence doesn't show up suddenly. It accumulates morning by morning, decision by decision, and eventually your evenings begin to change. Not because you tried to fix them, but because they reflect what happened earlier. Peaceful evenings are not created at night. They are earned in the morning through clarity, intention, and follow-through. So if you want different results, don't start by asking what you need to do differently at the end of the day. Start by asking what you need to decide at the beginning. Because when you design your mornings with intention, you're not just organizing your time, you're defining your life. People often misunderstand discipline. They think it's about restriction, about saying no to things they enjoy, about forcing themselves into a rigid structure that makes life feel smaller. But real discipline does the opposite. It creates space, it creates choice, it creates freedom. And that freedom is most visible at the end of the day. When someone reaches the evening feeling calm, present, and satisfied, it's rarely because nothing went wrong. It's because they handled what mattered early. They didn't carry unfinished priorities into the night. They didn't spend the day negotiating with themselves. They made the hard decisions before fatigue set in. This is what discipline in the morning really does. It protects your energy for later. Willpower is not unlimited. It fades as the day goes on. Every decision, every interruption, every emotional reaction drains it a little more. By the time evening arrives, most people are exhausted, not just physically, but mentally. And when decision-making is depleted, regret finds an easy place to settle. That's why so many nights feel heavy, not because the day was long, but because too many important choices were left too late. Morning discipline changes that equation. When you decide early what deserves your focus, you eliminate hundreds of unnecessary decisions later. You reduce mental clutter. You stop asking yourself over and over again what to do next. The plan is already there. The intention has already been set. And that's where freedom begins. Freedom isn't the absence of structure. It's the absence of chaos. It's the ability to be present without your mind pulling you back to what you avoided earlier. It's the ability to rest without guilt because you know you showed up when it counted. Most people chase comfort in the morning and end up craving peace at night. But comfort early is deceptive. It feels good in the moment, but it steals from the future. It postpones effort and multiplies stress. Peace at night, on the other hand, is earned. It's the result of doing what matters before distractions take over. This is why discipline must come before freedom. Not because discipline is noble, but because it's practical. The hardest part of any meaningful task is starting it. And the best time to start is when your energy is highest and your mind is clearest. That window exists in the morning. Ignore it, and the task doesn't disappear. It waits, and it grows heavier as the day progresses. When you tackle important work early, you shift the emotional weight of the day. Instead of carrying dread, you carry momentum. Instead of feeling behind, you feel ahead. And that feeling changes how you show up in every interaction that follows. Evenings are shaped by emotional residue. If the day was filled with avoidance, the residue is anxiety. If the day was filled with intention, the residue is calm. That calm is not accidental. It's designed. Morning discipline is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters first, and doing it before excuses gain strength, before distractions multiply, before energy leaks away. This kind of discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. A commitment to face what's meaningful before facing what's easy. A commitment to act in alignment with your values, not your moods. And here's the paradox. The more disciplined your mornings become, the more flexible your evenings feel. Because flexibility without responsibility leads to chaos, but flexibility after responsibility feels like reward. People who struggle to relax at night are often not struggling with rest. They're struggling with unresolved priorities. Their bodies are tired, but their minds are loud, and no amount of entertainment can silence a mind that knows it avoided something important. But when discipline leads the day, rest feels different. It feels deserved. It feels complete. There's no internal negotiation, no guilt, just presence. This is why successful people protect their mornings so fiercely, not because they love rowdiness, but because they value their evenings. They understand that how they want to feel at the end of the day determines how they must act at the beginning. And this isn't about productivity, it's about dignity. It's about self-respect. Keeping promises to yourself builds trust, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Every time you choose discipline in the morning, you send yourself a message. You say, I can rely on me. And that message compounds. Over time, it changes how you see yourself. You stop questioning your ability to follow through. You stop negotiating with your own standards. That inner stability creates outer peace. Evenings stop being a place of recovery and start becoming a place of reflection. Instead of asking, why am I so behind? You ask, what did I learn today? Instead of escaping the day, you close it. And that closure matters because days left open weigh on you. They bleed into sleep. They steal from tomorrow. But days that are handled with discipline end cleanly. They allow you to rest fully and start again with clarity. So if you want freedom at night, don't search for it after sunset. Build it before sunrise. Decide early, act deliberately, protect your energy, because discipline is not the enemy of freedom, it is the path to it. Most people believe their days are shaped by events, by meetings that go wrong, by people who disappoint them, by problems they didn't expect. But if you look closely, you'll notice something more subtle at work. What truly shapes the day is not what happens, but how prepared you were when it happened. And preparation begins with the very first decisions you make. The first decisions of the day are not about productivity, they are about emotional alignment. They determine whether you spend the day steady or scattered, focused or frustrated, intentional or reactive. Long before the first challenge appears, the tone has already been set. That's why mornings matter more than people realize. Not because they are early, but because they are influential. When the day begins without clarity, the mind searches for stimulation. It jumps from one thing to the next, responding instead of choosing. Small irritations feel bigger. Minor setbacks feel personal. The emotional baseline is already unstable, so everything shakes it. But when the first decisions are intentional, the emotional baseline is different. You begin grounded, centered, present, and from that place, the same events produce different reactions. This is not about controlling your emotions. It's about designing the conditions in which your emotions operate. Energy is not created by doing more. It's created by eliminating unnecessary friction. And friction often comes from indecision, from starting the day without knowing what deserves attention and what doesn't. When everything feels equally important, your energy leaks everywhere. When priorities are clear, energy flows where it's needed most. The first choice of the day is not what task you do. It's what mindset you adopt. Do you wake up as a responder or as a leader? Do you let urgency dictate your mood, or do you anchor yourself to purpose? Because purpose stabilizes emotion. When you know why something matters, interruptions don't derail you as easily. You don't take resistance personally. You don't panic when plans shift. You adapt without losing direction. This is why two people can experience the same problem and respond completely differently. One reacts emotionally, the other responds intentionally. The difference is not strength, it's preparation, and preparation happens quietly before the world is watching. Emotional energy is finite. Spend it recklessly early, and you'll have none left when it matters most. But invest it wisely in the morning, and it compounds throughout the day. This is why mornings that begin with chaos often end in exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but emotional fatigue. The kind that makes even simple decisions feel heavy, the kind that turns minor inconveniences into major frustrations. But when the emotional tone is set intentionally, something changes. You become harder to shake. You stop handing control of your mood to external circumstances. You become steady. That steadiness is not passive, it's powerful. It allows you to listen instead of react, to respond instead of defend, to stay present instead of spiraling. And that presence affects every interaction. People feel it. Conversations improve. Decisions sharpen. All because of choices made before the day began. This is why the first inputs of the day matter so much. What you consume mentally in the morning shapes your emotional lens. If the first thing you absorb is urgency, comparison, or noise, your emotions will mirror that. But if the first input is clarity, reflection, or purpose, your emotions align accordingly. You don't need hours, you need intention. A few minutes of grounding can prevent hours of emotional recovery later. A moment of clarity can save an entire day from unnecessary tension. And here's the part most people overlook. Your emotional tone doesn't just affect you, it spreads. You carry it into meetings, into conversations, into decisions that impact others, the way you feel influences, the way you lead, speak, and listen. So when mornings are reactive, leadership suffers. When mornings are intentional, leadership improves, even if you don't have a title, even if no one is watching, because leadership is first internal. When you take responsibility for your emotional starting point, you stop blaming the day for how you feel. You recognize that while you can't control everything that happens, you can influence how prepared you are when it does. And that influence is powerful. Over time, these small emotional decisions accumulate. You become known as someone who is calm under press. Sure, clear in chaos, focused when others are scattered, not because you avoid difficulty, but because you trained your nervous system to start from stability. And that training happens in the morning. Evenings then tell the truth. They reflect the emotional tone that was set early. If the day was lived in reaction, the night feels restless. If the day was lived in alignment, the night feels complete. Peace at night is not the absence of problems. It's the absence of emotional debt. It's knowing you didn't spend the day fighting yourself. So if you find your emotions running the day instead of supporting it, don't wait for the next challenge to test you. Start earlier. Decide sooner. Set the tone before the noise arrives. Because the first decisions you make don't just start your day. They decide how you feel living it. People talk about motivation as if it's the missing ingredient, as if once they feel inspired enough, everything will fall into place. But motivation has never been reliable. It arrives late, it leaves early, and it disappears the moment discomfort shows up. Consistency, on the other hand, doesn't wait to feel ready. The most meaningful progress in life is rarely the result of intense bursts of effort. It's the result of small actions repeated long after the excitement has faded. And those repetitions almost always begin in the morning. Mornings are where consistency is either built or broken, not through grand gestures, but through quiet decisions. The choice to show up even when enthusiasm is low. The choice to do what was planned instead of what feels comfortable. This is why relying on motivation is risky. Motivation asks, do I feel like I tea today? Consistency asks, who am I committed to becoming? That question changes everything. When your actions are tied to identity instead of emotion, excuses lose their power. You stop negotiating with your feelings. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You act because it's who you are, not because you're inspired. And that identity is shaped early in the day. Each morning offers a vote for the person you want to become, or a vote for the person you're trying to outgrow. One vote may seem insignificant, but votes accumulate, and over time they define your character. This is why consistency doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be repeatable, something so manageable that resistance has no reason to appear, because the goal is not intensity. The goal is trust. Trust is built through follow-through. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself in the morning, you strengthen that trust. You prove that your word matters, even when no one else is watching, and that proof changes how you see yourself. Self-belief doesn't come from positive thinking. It comes from evidence. Evidence that you do what you say you will do, especially on the days when it would be easier not to. This is why consistency is more powerful than motivation. Motivation can start a habit. Only consistency can sustain it. And the most consistent people don't rely on willpower. They rely on structure. They remove unnecessary decisions. They make the right action the easiest action. They design mornings that support follow-through instead of testing it. When mornings are inconsistent, everything downstream becomes unstable. Plans change, priorities shift, momentum breaks, and Once momentum is lost, progress feels heavy. But when mornings are predictable, the mind relaxes. It knows what comes next. Energy is conserved, focus improves, and progress becomes smoother. This is not about being rigid, it's about being dependable. Consistency creates rhythm, and rhythm creates flow. When you know what to expect from yourself each morning, you move through the day with less friction. You're not constantly resetting, you're continuing. That continuation matters because stopping and starting is exhausting. It drains energy and confidence, but steady movement builds resilience. Even slow progress feels encouraging when it's uninterrupted. And over time, something unexpected happens. The actions that once required effort begin to feel natural. What was once discipline becomes habit. What was once uncomfortable becomes familiar. And what was once difficult becomes part of who you are. That's how real change happens, not through transformation moments, but through accumulation. One morning at a time, one small decision repeated long enough to become identity. This is why people who succeed long-term often seem calm, unrushed, grounded. They're not fighting themselves every day. They've removed the internal debate. The decision has already been made. Evenings then reflect that consistency. There's less self-criticism, less regret, less replaying of missed opportunities, not because the day was perfect, but because it was aligned. Consistency doesn't guarantee success, but inconsistency guarantees frustration. When you show up inconsistently, you're always catching up, always restarting, always rebuilding momentum that never had time to settle. Hat cycle is exhausting, and it convinces people that progress is harder than it needs to be. But when you commit to small, consistent actions in the morning, progress becomes inevitable. Not fast, not flashy, but reliable, and reliability is powerful. Because when you trust yourself, you move differently. You take better risks. You make clearer decisions. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. That trust doesn't come from a single big win. It comes from hundreds of small mornings where you chose consistency over comfort. So if you're waiting to feel motivated, you may be waiting forever. But if you commit to consistency, motivation becomes irrelevant. Design a morning you can repeat, honor small promises, show up even when it's quiet, because consistency doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you believe you are. Most people think the day is won or lost at night. They try to fix everything after the energy is gone. They promise themselves tomorrow will be different while lying in bed replaying what they didn't do. But nights don't decide the quality of your life. They simply reveal it. Evenings are mirrors. They show you what kind of day you lived. They reflect the choices you made when energy was available, when clarity was possible, when intention could still lead. By the time night arrives, there are no more wins to chase, only truths to face. This is why evenings feel so different from one person to another. For some, the night feels heavy. Thoughts race, guilt creeps in, rest feels shallow because the mind is still carrying unresolved decisions. For others, evenings feel calm, not perfect but settled. They can sit with themselves without distraction. They can sleep without bargaining with tomorrow. The difference is not circumstance, it's preparation. When important choices are avoided during the day, they don't disappear. They wait. And at night, when distractions fade, they surface. The silence becomes loud because the mind finally has space to speak. This is why people often blame anxiety on the night itself, but the night is innocent. It's simply honest. It tells you what the day left unfinished. Trying to conquer the evening is the wrong strategy. You don't win reflections by fighting them. You change reflections by changing what they reflect. And that work happens earlier. The day is not meant to end with urgency. It's meant to end with closure. Closure doesn't mean everything went right. It means you showed up where it mattered. It means you made conscious choices instead of postponing responsibility. When that happens, the evening becomes a review, not a courtroom. You don't judge yourself. You observe, you learn, you acknowledge effort, and that creates peace. But when the day is spent reacting, evenings become confrontational. The mind starts asking hard questions when it's too late to answer them. Questions like, why didn't I start sooner? Or why did I avoid that? Or why do I keep repeating this pattern? Those questions aren't there to punish you. They're signals. They're reminders that something important was ignored. And the only way to quiet them is not distraction, it's alignment. Evenings don't require more stimulation, they require resolution. Resolution comes from decisions made earlier, from choosing what matters before the day begins, from acting with intention instead of drifting through urgency, from respecting your future self enough to do the hard things when energy is high. This is why people who design their mornings don't fear the night. They don't need to escape it. They can sit with it because there's nothing chasing them. Evenings are where identity settles. They are the moments when you either feel proud of your effort or disconnected from your own standards. That feeling compounds. Night after night, it shapes how you see yourself, and how you see yourself determines how you act tomorrow. If nights are filled with regret, mornings begin with resistance. If nights are filled with calm, mornings begin with clarity. The cycle feeds itself. That's why evenings are not the place to negotiate change. They are the place to confirm it. Change begins when you stop asking, how do I fix my nights? And start asking, what kind of day do I want to be able to live with? That question forces honesty. It shifts focus from comfort to meaning, from escape to engagement. And it brings responsibility back to where it belongs. Evenings are not about productivity. They are about integration, about allowing the day to settle, about recognizing effort without inflating ego or deepening shame. When the day was intentional, integration is easy. The mind nature. Alley winds down. Sleep comes more freely. Tomorrow feels approachable. But when the day lacks direction, integration becomes difficult. The mind resists rest because it knows something is unresolved, and no amount of entertainment can resolve what only action can. This is why the most peaceful evenings belong to people who stopped trying to win at night and started leading in the morning. They understand that the evening doesn't need to be conquered. It needs to be earned. Earned through clarity, earned through discipline, earned through consistency, earned through emotional alignment. When those are in place, the evening becomes what it was always meant to be, a quiet confirmation that you live the day on purpose. So if you're tired of nights that feel restless, don't fight the darkness. Look at the light that came before it, because the evening will always tell the truth. And when you're ready to hear a better one, it starts with how you begin. So here's what it all comes down to. Your life is not shaped by dramatic moments. It's shaped by quiet ones, the ones no one applauds, the ones that happen before the world is watching, the moments when you decide whether today will be led by intention or surrendered to reaction. Designing your mornings is not about waking up earlier. It's about waking up aware of what matters, aware of who you are becoming, aware that every small decision is a vote for the life you want to live. When you choose intention in the morning, discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like protection. Protection of your energy, protection of your focus, protection of your future self. You stop carrying unfinished priorities into the night, and the evening stops feeling heavy when you set the emotional tone early. The day stops controlling you. Challenges don't disappear, but they lose their power to derail you. You respond instead of react. You stay grounded when others feel scattered, and that calm becomes your quiet strength. When you commit to consistency instead of motivation, progress becomes inevitable. Not fast, not flashy, but real. You build trust with yourself through follow-through, and that trust changes how you move through the world. You stop doubting your ability to show up. You stop negotiating with your own standards. And when you do what matters before distractions take over, evenings change. Not because you fix them, but because they reflect a day lived with purpose. The night becomes a place of closure, not guilt. Reflection, not regret. Rest, not escape. This is the hidden connection most people miss. Peace at night is not found in the evening. It is earned in the morning. Calm sleep is not the result of exhaustion. It is the result of alignment. You don't win the day by surviving it. You win it by deciding it. So tomorrow morning, don't ask how much you have to do. Ask who you want to be. Don't wait for motivation. Choose consistency. Don't chase comfort early and hope for peace later. Design the beginning. Because when you take control of how the day starts, you quietly take control of how it ends. And over time, those designed mornings and decided evenings don't just change your schedule, they change your life.